Good morning. Yeah, good morning. It is Friday. It is raining in Eretz Yisrael, so no bicycling today. So indoors and getting ready for Parsh Vayechi. We kind of close the book on Bereshis. So this week's Parsha, we know that it's famous because there's no break between Vayigash and Vayechi. And there's a famous kliyakar. It's actually the official favorite kliyakar of the Axelrod family, where it tells, at the end of the parsha there's no break because there's a downside. It says Jews are doing well in Mitzrayim, but that's a downside, and it's a call. The Kliyakar says it's a call that we should really look for Eretz Yisrael, look for Mashiach, and not get caught up in Chutz La'aretz, not get caught up in our fancy houses, stone houses. His words, not mine. So that's a kliyakar on this piece. There's a Pri Tzaddik who has really I won't say the opposite, but a very different approach to why there's a break in the action, was no break in the action by Yigash Vayechi. Quotes a medrash that says that the breaks in the Torah, if you lay in the Torah, there's breaks between the parshos, and within a parsha, there's different stops, small stops, bigger breaks. There's a medrash that says that Moshe put these breaks in here to give time to explain what he just taught the Jewish people. So when he taught a certain perek or a certain piece, paraduma, egla rufa, whatever the case is, there's a break, and Moshe would explain it. And the Pri Tzaddik says, if Moshe would have put a break at the end of Vayigash, then we would have attributed the success the Jews had, Yechzubo, that they get stronger, they multiply. We would have attributed that to Mitzrayim. So if we kind of close the chapter on Vayigash and Moshe explains to the people, we would have thought that, okay, the Jews did well because of Mitzrayim. And Pri Tzaddik says that's really not the point. The point is to tie the success to Vayechi Yaakov. So literally, the success, and when Rashi says, when Yaakov was alive, the Tsaros was hidden. When Yaakov was alive, they didn't feel the pressure of Mitzrayim, the shibud of Mitzrayim. Even though they didn't work for many years, but they didn't feel anything. Literally, when Yaakov was alive, by Yaakov, that's where the Jews succeeded. They did very well in Mitzrayim, Gashmias, Ruchnias-wise, because of Yaakov, because Yaakov was able to kind of be there, teaching them Torah, being with the grandfather. And by the Jews being all together, they were literally succeeding because of that. So that's why the success of Mitzrayim is tied to the first piece of Vayechi and Vayechi Yaakov. So it's one reason why they succeeded in Eretz Yisrael. And this kind of goes a little bit to go into Yaakov. If you think about it, we had Yaakov in the parsha for almost 2 months, more than Avram and Yitzchak. And it's literally the end of the line, and the line really for Yaakov, even though Yaakov didn't lomes. And there's certain brachos, certain lessons that we take in the way that we see Yaakov. Yaakov is the only one of the avos to spend his best years in Chutz La'aretz. Abraham, his best years was Eretz Yisrael. He leaves to go to Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael. And Vayechi Yaakov, his best years was literally in Mitzrayim, even though he spent years in Eretz Yisrael living, but his main living was towards the end of his life when he was in Mitzrayim. And this is one of the things that, even though the actual end of days, Achshel Yomim, is hidden, Yaakov wants to tell them when Mashiach is, and it's hidden from him. But Yaakov's giving us another lesson, that even though he doesn't know when, but he knows how. He knows the how. And it's only through succeeding in Chutz La'aretz, succeeding in Golus, will bring the Geula. So he's telling them, literally he's telling the Bnei Yisrael that even though we don't know when it's going to take place, but how it's going to take place. And we can actually see this a little bit into the brachos that Yaakov gives to Ephraim and Asher. First he says, Avosai, Yitzchak, and then he says, Haroa Osi. And the Pri Tzaddik says there's two pieces that take place here. Shem Avosai, Abram, who was Ahava, inviting people, Makar of people, that's Aseh Tov. Yitzchak is Surmei Ra, trying to imagine the year of Hashem, trying to stay away from bad. But Tzimtzum, serving Hashem close by and not spreading out, but kind of staying close to the best. So that's Shem Avosa, Avram Yitzchak. But the other part that Yaakov excelled was Hashem Haroa Osi. It's not the first time that Hashem's called a shepherd. We know that Yaakov was a shepherd. We know that Yaakov, the others were shepherds. But Yaakov spends most of his life, a good part of his life, working under Lavan in Chutz La'aretz as a shepherd. And we see that was his main trait. We see in other pieces of the Pri Tzaddik is people have to get to a level to recognize Hashem in the world. Yaakov was already there. Yaakov saw anything in his life and everything in his life as from Hashem, while the Avos had actions to do and to get to these levels, just like sometimes people learn before davening, some people wait an hour before davening to kind of clear their minds to get to a level of davening. Yaakov didn't need that. Yaakov was already on that level almost his whole life. And that's kind of what the two aspects that the Pri Tzaddik says, what Yaakov's trying to teach Yosef and his sons and everyone, that there's two aspects. There's the Ma'asim and Tovim, there's doing actions to get you to this high level, but the other side of it is Hashem Aroa Osi, and that's what Yaakov is saying to the people, is we don't know when we're getting out of Gullus, we don't know when Achros Hayom is, but the paradigm to get out of Gullus is those two factors. One is through your actions and to bring yourself close to Hashem, and the other side, which is even a higher level, is to view everything in your life is from Hashem. The famous Baal Shem Tov, which we mentioned, whenever you see something throughout the day, it's a lesson for you. You see someone Mimachal Shabbos, see someone talking in shul, see someone Lashon Hara, all these things, how does it affect you? Do you take Musar from it? What do you do with this? The Ali Shor talks about, we know that the Meraglim were called Rishayim because they didn't take Musar from Miriam. So the question is, why were they called Rishayim right away? They didn't do anything bad yet. Why are they called Rishayim? If only at the end of the 40 days they come back, then they give Lashon Hara. Why immediately are they called Rishayim, that they didn't listen to what Miriam spoke Lashon Hara, and they still wanted to go out? Because the point is, the Ali Shor says, if you don't take Musar, you're ready a Rasha. It's ready bad. Even if you don't act on it. But every time you have a lesson, anything that takes place in your life is a lesson for you. You go to a shir, it's not just to learn it, close the sefer and move on. My actions have to reflect what my thought process is. And too much ruchnius isn't good, because that's not where you're holding. Your body isn't there yet. Too much gashmius isn't good, because your ruchnius is higher than that. And that's kind of what Yaakov was, is this das, to kind of bring these two worlds together, to bring the world of action together and the world of machshava, the world of Torah, into one thing. And hopefully that's what we want to get. No matter where you are, you're in Beit Shemesh or you're in a fancy Flatbush, the key is to look at your actions and look at your machshava and try to get that together. What's matim for you? What's matim for a person? Is ma'asim tovim and Torah, but there's got to be some mix. We just don't do sukkah without thinking how it's going to affect my approach or appreciation for Hashem. We don't just go through the motions of Pesach or Shabbos without thinking, how are these actions, eating this undigestible flat bread, how does that bring me to think about Geula? So it's not just actions, lighting menorah, it's really thinking what's behind it. And those two pieces, the actions with the machshava, is how we want to connect to Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.